This is for
Qualified.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Channing Apodaca, a man across the screen, as always, the one and only DJ B. Wood.
Welcome.
How you feeling, big guy? Fella?
Feeling good. Fully recovered from the weekend. We were super excited to come back to China, and boy, did this weekend deliver.
I love how
we had a first sprint week.
Every intro you do, you're always like, man, I'm fully recovered, as if you were in the race or out partying as part of it. Or is it just the adrenaline that you felt?
Well, I mean, just the adrenaline, the ups and downs, all the drama that we saw unfold from Friday through Sunday. It was a fun-filled, action-packed weekend, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think, we're not doing Race of the Year standings this year, but if we were, I mean, obviously China would be at the top of the list for now, and I think it could potentially have held its place there for the majority of the race. We don't know, or the majority of the season. We don't know how everything's going to play out, but that was such a good Grand Prix and Grand Prix weekend in all. I could see that holding its own as a top 3, top 5, if not the winner, if we were keeping tabs. But we're not, so don't even bring it up, okay? But yeah, great race, man. It was so good to have China back on the calendar. It was the first time I got a real good look at this track, and possibly my new favorite, second favorite, definitely one of my tops now.
Yeah, I mean, you have it's like 3 sets of grandstands there, which just make for such cool moments on the track. Got the ones on the start straight, and then the 2 that are opposite each other in the little hairpin turn there. I mean, just made for some awesome shots. They had got the long straight in the back there, creating some cool passing opportunities. Altogether, it was cool. It's just so nice to be back at a purpose-built track.
Yeah.
It's compared to some of the street tracks we go to, you see how the racing can change when you have a track that's really built to set up the cars like this to race. So
I see a lot of people online pushing for more street tracks, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? I understand the appeal from the outside perspective. Oh, we're racing on the streets of Las Vegas. That's cool, and that is a great race. But to continue to add more, no, let's build some really good tracks that, like you said, are purpose-built.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the track layouts just between Miami and Las Vegas, they're not really that different. You probably, if you're driving on, you probably couldn't make it out that much between, the difference between the two. So I like coming to a weekend like this where you got a purpose-built track with tons of character, just an amazing environment altogether. The fans were just showing out, full force, not only for their hometown hero, Zhou Guan Yu, but for all the teams. Seemed like had pretty good support. So just really cool to be back. I think it was a great success.
The Shanghai track reminds me a lot of Interlagos. I don't know if you got that same feeling, but the elevation changes, the big swooping rights and lefts, the downhills. I think you could put a couple pieces of those tracks. If you blurred your eyes a little bit, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And that's my favorite spot. You all know that. So I again just really fucking love this.
So first weekend with the new sprint format, how did you enjoy the new sequence of running this weekend?
I liked it. I liked having the sprint and then a quali for the Grand Prix on the same night. It gave us something to look forward to, or same day, depending, I guess, where you're at. And I know a lot of people didn't like it. It felt like it was such a rushed atmosphere for some people, but for me, it was midnight over here, and I had nothing else to do, so it gave me something to look forward to, one after the other. And I like the fact that they are now separate from each other. It's not as jumbled up where it's like, oh, you have this sprint quali here, a regular quali there, a sprint here, and it was all jumbled up. The only thing I wouldn't mind if they changed it up for, I don't even know how I want to say this. I enjoy the format. It is just a little bit boring, I guess, in a way, that it's 2 separate sessions, whereas the original sprint format, having the sprint set the qualifying order for the race was a little bit more exciting. But overall, I did enjoy it, at least better than last year's format. If that makes any sense. I know that was completely
Yeah.
jumbled up. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but yeah, I like it.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. You liked having like the fact that the sprint used to have an implication on
On the
Sunday's
race.
Grand Prix,
Yeah.
right? Like you liked like them being connected, which I can see and understand. I think the sprints having their own points system, I think, kind of makes up for that because maybe you won't get penalized by a bad result in the sprint race on Sunday. You can race a little bit better on Saturday, and then throughout the season the points accumulate, so it still matters. Putting in a good drive on Saturday.
Yeah, overall,
But
this is
I just for
probably
the
the better
flow of
format because drivers back in the original sprint format, was it 2-3 years ago, they would drive very cautiously in the sprint because they didn't want to lose places for the race where it all really mattered. There's a couple points on the line in the sprint, but everybody drove extremely cautiously, didn't really go for it. It was like how we ended up in qualifying for the sprint was how that sprint race would end up. It was like every race was Monaco, basically. So though it did have an implication on the Grand Prix qualifying order, it is better that they're two separate races from each other because we get better racing.
Yeah, and yeah, I felt just the overall flow of the weekend was better. Once once the sprint was over on Saturday, drivers had to go right to qualifying mode for Sunday, and I know that was a little difficult on them, but just it was nice to have the sprint over, and then if they wanted to make changes, they could,
Yeah.
going into qualifying. And I think, we talked about this last week and what this may give an opportunity for some of the teams to make advantages over the other teams, and we actually saw, I think, couple teams, I think Sergio Perez himself said that the changes he made between the sprint and then the qualifying on Sunday actually hurt him a little bit. We saw like Lewis.
Yeah, I was going to say not just
I think
Checo.
that was the biggest example. I think the reason I said Checo is because he, explicitly stated that that's what happened. But I think Lewis, it's very obvious that the little changes they tried to make after a great drive on Saturday ended up taking him back quite a few steps. So, there is an opportunity for people to still make mistakes here. So I think, the goal is accomplished with the sprint weekends. I think this new format is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, we were talking about it as, teams having the opportunity to better their setups. But anytime there's an opportunity to better your setup, it also comes with the cost of potentially ruining your setup, which, Checo, like, he didn't have the greatest, but he did have a little bit of a comeback drive. I forget where he qualified for the race, but he ended up in P3. But Lewis Hamilton, my God, podiums in the sprint, and then for the fucking race on Sunday, qualifies P18. And I know it wasn't just a car setup error or driver error. He got caught out a little bit and didn't have the best timing of his session, but Jesus Christ, what a stark difference. And he made that up a little bit in the race. He had some overtakes. I don't remember exactly where he finished, but brutal weekend again for the Lou Dog.
I believe, yeah, he did have a bit of recovery on Sunday, getting the car back up into, I think it was 9th.
Yeah, he got points. That's right. Finished 9th. So he gained 9 places.
Yeah, so he got, which is pretty good. I mean, he was complaining the entire time, obviously.
What's new?
As he's been doing. Yeah, what else is new? But overall, I think, good weekend from Lewis, aside from, I think he was like the one mistake he made before Q2. He didn't quite get a good run in. So, but yeah, I mean, just to start off, like his amazing launch in the sprint, getting the move on Lando.
Yeah. God, that broke my
forcing
heart.
Lando off. Yeah, so Lando ends up. He ended up in the sprint qualifying. We had a little bit of a torrential downpour going into SQ3, I believe, maybe in between SQ2, and SQ3 it started. But yeah, so he had his lap deleted going in towards the end of SQ3, then reinstated after a little bit of confusion with the race directors over how that all plays out, whether or not they go over the lines going into the last corner, which I don't completely understand fully, but regardless, Lando gets slap reinstated and ends up with a 1.3 second gap over the rest of the field, which is somewhere in the top 10, I understand, of pole gaps to the rest of the field.
Damn.
So this is quite a big moment, although it was kind of seemingly out of nowhere, as Lando said. And again, this weekend, much like last go at Japan, McLaren, assuming that they're going to be much further back, end up having a pretty decent pace. Lando Norris able to, at the great qualifying position and a couple opportune moments on track, is able to pull through with a P finish on Sunday. Manages to grab a place from Sergio when they make their second pit stop under safety car. And yeah, a bit of graceful driving from Lando, able to bring it back on the one stop and maintain position in front of Sergio. So overall, amazing weekend for him. Aside from, like we said, him getting pushed off beginning of the sprint, I think he has a lot to be proud of for this weekend.
Yeah, it was a great drive from Lando. You're breaking up a little bit there, but I think we'll make do. I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend. Anytime the McLarens think that they're going to do bad, they end up on the podium, at least one of their cars. And then anytime Lando has a really great weekend, all his interviews are extremely chagrin. Do you ever notice that with him? They're giving him all these accolades. You know, he's signing a little tire for getting pole position, and he's just so like, yeah, well, I did it. It's almost like he's like, but I don't deserve it. Like, yeah, we did good, but at what cost? Or so, you know, like he just seems so sad.
Yeah, I think, I don't know exactly where that's coming from. I feel like some of that is probably just the fact that he really wants to be on par with the Red Bulls, and he wants to be able to challenge for a win.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I mean, he's still going after that elusive first win. So I think until he gets that, he's going to be a little bit perturbed. I think.
Yeah, it's so sad
even
too
when
how
he's
much
praised
Sochi
for a second. You know, it's just a little bit bittersweet, I think, for him to be. You know, well, it was a great drive, but it wasn't a win.
Yeah.
So,
and he knows that like the rain implications had a little bit to do with it, and that's kind of where you see Lando do well, is when there's a little bit of a variable. Not that he isn't driving great. It takes a great drive to be able to pull something like that off, but it's always a slight little bit of a variable, and I think that kind of irks him in the back of his mind, knowing that it's just not a straight up dogfight. And it's a little bit sad how much Sochi is always going to come back and bite him. Anytime he's up top, he gets overtaken, he loses out on the first lap or anything, you hear those words from the commentary crew about Sochi 2020. But great drive from Lando. I think this is a funny thing, too, for him to be so upset with himself, or, you know, just outside that win. I mean, by, 11 or plus seconds here and there. But in a Max Verstappen-less world, like you said that he wants so badly to be on par with the Red Bulls. In a Max Verstappen-less world, Lando Norris has 7 Grand Prix victories in the last, 10-plus races, including this season and the end of last season, because he got second place in... How many times has he gotten second this year? 2, 3 times? And then a couple to finish out the season last year. It's something like 7 times he would have won a Grand Prix had Max Verstappen not been there. And if we use Sergio Perez as the benchmark for the Red Bulls. So, you're still doing pretty fucking good. There's just this great outlier in a world beater of Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he can do at this point is just put himself in a good position to capitalize on any opportunities that arise, right? Like, all it takes is a puncture from Max for that win to happen, in this past weekend. So
yeah, a puncture, a rear brake fire. Had they been on par in what was it, Australia? Had they been on par in Australia, that's a Lando Norris victory right there. Instead, Carlos Sainz picks up the scraps.
So it's just about being in the right place at the right time, and so far they've been doing everything they need to do. A rough weekend for Oscar, but he's still showing that he can keep up with the pace a little bit.
Yeah, I think with Oscar, I don't know if everybody feels about this, but me in particular, he's having like a little bit of a sophomore slump because his my idea of him was so much higher. Like, I think I put him in a bigger light, forgetting that he is still a rookie because he had such a phenomenal rookie season. He won a sprint race. He podiumed.
Well, He's not a rookie anymore. So
Is this his third year?
this is his second year.
Well, I consider sophomore year to still be a rookie year. That's how they do it in other pro sports. It's 2 years for your rookie. That's how you qualify to be a rookie for 2 years. And so I apply that to F1.
This is the first I'm hearing about this. I thought a rookie was like it's your first year. That's like the point.
I mean, maybe in F1 terms, maybe, but in other sports, it's 2 years, and you're considered a rookie.
Maybe in hockey. I don't know.
That might be the only one. These are the only two sports I watch. They're the only two comparables I have. You could be right. I don't know. I'm just using that term. Like, I consider Logan Sargent still to be a rookie. I won't treat him like one because I'm goddamn sick of him, but
nonetheless, we've got rookies on the grid. We also have some of the some older drivers on the grid.
We have quite the opposite. What a beautiful transition.
And Fernando Alonso just continuing to show us that he's here to fight, even though that car may not have the pace or the endurance to be able to make it through the whole weekend. He's going to put up a great qualifying, and he's going to keep his elbows out, and he's going to fight for every last scrap he can get.
Yeah.
So overall, it maybe didn't amount to a whole lot for Fernando, but it was very fun to watch all weekend. In the sprint, his battle with I think it was both Ferraris, ends up getting into it with Carlos Sainz and is penalized because of it, which I feel like is maybe a little bit harsh for 10 seconds.
Yeah, that was brutal
in that instance. But nonetheless, like I said, some great driving. Had an amazing move at the start of the race. Sunday takes the place from Checo, kind of in an opposite fashion that Lando lost the place in the sprint. So cool to see that.
Yeah, if I had to sum up Fernando Alonso in 3 words, it would just be this fucking guy. Even when, he DNFs the sprint, he gets a penalty in the race on Sunday, but at every stop of the entire weekend, he was just so exciting. He was making moves, he was defending and just bringing excitement. Like, that was just true veteran driving from him, and at a track that he has to know all too well, and just made way of the track. He used every inch of it. Just fucking exciting. There was a great meme that I saw a couple weeks ago. It was a picture. It was like a 4-quad picture, and it said the future of Formula One. And it was like Kimi Antonelli, who's an Oscar Piastri, another young driver. Oh, Ollie Behrman was in there, and then it had Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, somehow he'll still be on the grid in like 10 years.
He's 65
Fernando Alonso.
years old.
Yeah, he's evergreen.
Yeah, great drive from Nandy.
Yeah, unfortunately for his teammate Lance Stroll, another rough weekend.
Dude, can we even call it rough? Because to say rough is like something happened to you. I don't even know.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was definitely self-inflicted for the most part. His weekend where did he qualify exactly? Let's see, because
I'll take a look right now.
I think the sprint he
qualified 11th. He just missed out on Q3.
Yeah, so sprint qualifying, he was 15th. Not great. He moved up 1 place in the sprint to 14th. Qualified for the race in 11th. So, got through to Q2. Fernando, his teammate, able to get up in the 3rd. So, comparatively not as great to be excited about. So, yeah, I mean, Lance. He
Lance.
Lance. At the second restart, or the first restart, Valtteri Bottas had DNF'd. I think it was like lap 21 or so, lap 19 maybe. Going into the hairpin, I think it was Fernando Alonso in front of a little train of cars locks up, causing it was Piastri and somebody else, and then Ricciardo, who was subsequently ran into the back of by Stroll, who was not paying attention. According to onboards, you can see him kind of looking to the apex of the corner right about the time that he's supposed to be pressing on his brake. So
Yeah, that's a pretty inopportune time to be texting right there, Lance. I mean, it looked like he completely. I understand, like, looking to the future, but when you have 3 other cars directly in front of you going into a braking zone, don't be looking to hit the apex perfectly. Just get out of the fucking corner, man.
It's tough because, in that circumstance, they're waiting for Max to go on the restart. So he's kind of looking ahead, but at the same time, like where they are on the track is very compromising place to be in if you're not paying attention. So he definitely gets caught out by this, and then immediately on the radio, he says these idiots just slammed on the brake, and so
you mean in the braking zone?
Later on after the race, Daniel Ricciardo gets word that he was called an idiot by Stroll. Subsequently, Daniel Ricciardo says "F that guy," and we have a little bit of beef brewing in the paddock right now. Ricciardo a little upset that Stroll doesn't want to take responsibility for this, and seemingly is not going to learn. So there's not really much to take from it other than that we got a guy who's not going to accept responsibility for his mistakes, and you got to kind of just take it for what it is.
Yeah, I didn't listen to his post-race interview. I meant to because I saw somebody posted it, and but he had that look of just like, what are you gonna do about it? That like Lance Stroll, like, not my fault, not my problem. When he has like a bad race and his interviews all just kind of look like that eyebrows up, what are you gonna do about it type look. And just I'm glad that Ricciardo is calling him out. I'm glad that he did that because nobody on the team is gonna give it to him. And Lance Stroll like always skates away unscathed. It seems like anytime he has an issue with somebody, and so this could be a nice little slap in the face for him.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it was fun to watch him and K-Mag battling for last place.
That was actually a really great scrap.
Yeah, just for a little bit of fun, maybe a little bragging rights, just to get through the rest of the day. But it was not great for Lance. And moving forward, it's got to be even harder and harder to justify keeping him around. But not much surprise there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one-off Lance Stroll good drive that can keep him around and justify his dad fucking paying his way, whatever.
So do you have any thoughts about Ferrari this weekend, or just kind of like,
I think they just kind of dropped the ball. I didn't see a whole lot of like what their setup was, what changes they made. But yeah, they were apparently just, like an afterthought.
Word I got on the street was that they did make changes after a sprint on Saturday, and both were somewhat more compromised because of it. But and the kind of the insinuating vibe that they were trying to get across was that they feel very comfortable with the car right now, so they're in a place where they're comfortable to try things a little bit differently to try to get an edge, and this is just a circumstance in which it didn't work out for them. So not much to be like totally alarmed about, but just that they just didn't get it quite right this weekend. Which
they seemed like they were just barely off the mark. Like they were best of the rest, but never really challenged in qualies, never really challenged for a top spot in either of the races. Just like I think barely missed out.
Yeah, I think some of it got exaggerated by the fact that Lando had such a great drive on Sunday, just being able to manage the tires. And I think the weather and the temperature kind of played into that, just like we said earlier with the McLarens not really anticipating to be where they were. I think some of that was just the change in the track characteristics.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think now is a good time to get into our props and flops for the weekend. So, if you have any that you would like to start with, feel free.
I think they're very, very easy to give out. Prop Lando Norris. He looked great all weekend. Whether he wants to admit it or not, or wants to take the praise, he had a great, great weekend and an extended weekend, and he kept it going. So prop to him. Flop to Lance Stroll. Horrific weekend. We just talked about it, so I don't need to get into it. Floppity flop flop, Lance.
My flop is going to be for Sauber.
Ooh.
Again, another weekend where, although they did have some improvements on their pit stops, we saw a couple good ones. But Valtteri Bottas, who was running up around ninth, I felt could have brought home a points finish for them this weekend. Ends up out of the race with the DNF.
It was the power unit, right?
Yeah, I had a full power unit go down. Zhou had I think a weekend that he can be proud of. He definitely got a bad go in qualifying, put himself in a bad situation for Sunday, and I think was able to make the most of it. Maybe not something to be super, definitely not what he wanted, but I think walking away, he should be proud. But I think the team could have done a little bit better job to give him a better opportunity.
They both looked good.
Was.
They both looked good in the sprint. They both made it into Q3, and then Bottas makes it into Q3 for the race, but Zhou loses out on Q2 by 0.4 of a second to an Alpine of all cars, which that right there is a bad look. But like you said, he did have a weekend he can be proud of. I think you would have guessed that he had just won the race when you see him get out of his car, the way he was celebrating. And it was so funny. Even the commentary box was like, geez, it looks like he thinks he just won the Grand Prix. But I think, jokes aside, I think he was just taking in the moment of like, holy shit, I never thought I'd actually get to be a part of a hometown Grand Prix. And that's probably going to be his last one, let's be honest. So just soaking in that moment and enjoying it, going from a kid in the stands to being, in the car now. So,
yeah. And like I said last week, I think even if this is the only, Grand Prix he's able to race here in Formula One, I think he can still be proud of himself and how he's done, being the first Chinese driver in Formula One and being able to be the first one to drive at the circuit. And so that's something he'll always have with him, and then he'll always be remembered by. So I think it's, like I said, he should be really proud of himself. So.
Yeah, hopefully it inspires some more Chinese kids over there to want to hop in the car. I mean, we want that at every track, right? We want more U.S. kids racing in Formula One. So hopefully, continue to grow.
But I'm gonna, So my props, I think this is a two-pronged props. It's maybe not full-fledged 10 out of 10 props, but a gentle fist bump right here for Checo. Even though didn't quite bring home a 1-2 finish, he should still be proud. He didn't really make any mistakes through the whole weekend. Maybe got caught out by track position, and with the restart, having the second safety car and all that stuff, he lost out to Lando with that, and then had to fight Charles and kind of just like wore out his tires with that. Wasn't able to catch up to Lando. So I think, all that being said, this is exactly where he should be. And
we'll call it a solid enough drive.
Yes, he's on par with what he should be doing. And then my next one, fist bump, goes to Haas.
Dude.
Keeping right on track with where they should be, making small improvements.
Yeah, I was going to say, not even on track. I think week after week, they get better. This is bonkers.
So just completely turning it around. Komatsu's just making it happen, man. I'm so happy for him. This is really cool to see. I'm excited to see where they can take it. So
yeah, they're fucking
so
crushing.
far they're on the right track.
One thing while we were talking about Checo, rumor came out this weekend, pretty verified Twitter accounts saying that Helmut Marko has publicly stated that they're in contract talks with Carlos Sainz.
So I was listening to the I forget what they call it, but it's the Tom Clarkson's podcast he does after the races or whatever. And he got Carlos's cousin / manager
Carlos
on there. And he asked him directly, he says, is like, what's it like right now? And he himself stated that there are a few teams that they're talking to. So there's more than 2 that they're talking to. There's at least 3.
I mean,
we're not going to hear anything until at least after Miami. So,
it's
but
got to
within the next
be
few within a few
Mercedes,
weeks,
Audi.
we should know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the 3 you could probably guess who they are.
Mercedes,
so
Audi, Red Bull.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to, I think, like,
let me pitch something to you really quick. And
Sure.
talking with Lance Stroll's continued downhill slide, imagine an all Spanish team at Aston Martin. And if they can get that car into fighting shape to have Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz, that's the best tandem in Formula One.
I mean, that'd be pretty beautiful to see. I think that they would get along pretty well. I think the team really needs a driver like Carlos to be in there to keep on par with Fernando. So, yeah, I mean, that would be a great fit. But I don't, by all accounts, I don't see that happening. Honestly, I think it's the Lance thing, but it would be a good fit. I think it would be a good fit because it would work.
I mean, I'm just going to be over here crossing my fingers that Lance Stroll goes and plays tennis for not even just for Carlos Sainz's sake, but like for F1's sake, just to get him out.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing for Carlos, right? There's 3 things at play, right? It's like, well, maybe not 3, but at least 2 that I can think of. He
Audi.
wants to be in a car that can win, right? And then he needs to get paid accordingly, right? So I know there's a couple plays, like Red Bull, for instance, they don't want to pay him what he's worth, but at the same time, like, if maybe the car's a little bit better and I can take make up for it with some sponsorships or whatever.
Yeah, but if he goes to Red Bull, and I think that there might be a decent chance that he does with Checo just getting older. If he goes to Red Bull, A, they're not going to pay him as much as he's worth. B, he's going to be a second driver. Like, that's definitive. He is going to be a number 2 going there. Maybe he'll win a race or 2, but does Carlos Sainz want to spend he's in the prime of his career. Does he want to spend his prime years being a number 2 driver behind Max Verstappen, or does he want to go to a team where he can challenge to be the number 1?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, like from what I hear a lot of times that, the Verstappens kind of run that team and they kind of help guide the direction of like where things will go. And I heard that in the past, in the Toro Rosso days, like there was a butting of heads between the Verstappen camp and the Sainz camp, with the 2 big, powerful father figures, both in the paddock, kind of trying to push things in different directions. I think that can be problematic. I don't know that would necessarily be the case nowadays. I feel like they've probably evolved a bit past that and are able to find a way to work together and make it a good situation for the whole team. But I don't know. I feel like it does seem like it would be pretty crowded.
Yeah,
at Red Bull. Right?
Oh yeah,
so
a lot of cooks in that kitchen. But that's just another rumor that I had to bring up because we were sending texts back and forth to each other about it. And it's big news. And it could be. I mean, we could have a signing on the horizon. You said by Miami, right?
Well, they said it wouldn't be before Miami, so probably after
2 weeks?
Miami. So yeah, so at least a couple weeks. We're not going to know, but somewhere after that, before the summer is over, we're going to know.
That's something to look forward to.
One last thing that I had in my notes. I don't think we ever got to the bottom of the fires that happened on Friday.
I have no idea. And it was multiple times, right?
It was twice it happened. It happened once during practice, and then once it happened in between SQ2 and SQ3, I think. So we had a little bit of a delay going into SQ3.
I don't know. I'm guessing maybe like a hot part flew off a car, and that was just like a dry patch. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing that was so weird is that they had like so much rain and moisture leading up to that point.
True.
There's like no way. Like there had to have been some sort of accelerant that was down. So like some people were saying that, well, the track is kind of built on a little bit of a swampy marsh, so there could be like methane or something that's like seeping up through the ground, and then like sparks just ignited it, something, or it could have been overspray from whatever they used to treat the track. Or
I was going to say that's more
of,
likely because they did just finish treating that track.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly when it got repainted or whatever, because I remember them saying something about it having been done last year or towards the end of last year. So Which is another thing that
we
I
didn't
was
talk
texting
about.
you about, which we didn't really talk about, which was the whole track surface situation, which is so strange to me that, we hadn't been here. There's been away from here for 4 years. It's been 5 years since we've been back. And, F1 officials, like the race directors, were aware that the surface had been repainted, but nobody felt it was worthy of like checking out. So, and Pirelli themselves, who normally send an engineer to every track to like verify, that the surface that they're going to be on is like actually the ones that they plan on, and that's how they decide what tire compounds to use and all that stuff. That in this situation, they just didn't send anybody because they didn't have somebody available.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So we showed up to a circuit that no one had been to in over 4 years, 5 years, and nobody had any idea what the surface was going to be like. Not from F1, not from Pirelli, not from any of the team. And the teams didn't even know that it had been repainted.
Yeah, so they went in and were just like, what the hell is this shit?
Huge oversight to me. Like, that seems ridiculous that, like, just Pirelli didn't send anybody because they didn't have somebody available.
Which begs the question, where were your guys then? What race is happening that's more important than an F1 Grand Prix? This is the pinnacle of motorsport. You need to keep at least one guy on hand for that weekend. What GT race, or I know the Long Beach Grand Prix was happening, but they don't supply tires to Long Beach. So what race was happening that your engineers needed to be there instead of in Shanghai? I don't know. At first,
it would have been like in advance of the Grand Prix, right? It would have been like weeks ago, but like
sure, but like what was happening that was more important? What is more important than an F1 Grand Prix?
Exactly. Like you would think that we hadn't been here for so long. There's a lot that's unknown about the circuit. So you would think that they would put some effort into like gathering information, but apparently that's just not important. So
no. At first, I was down. I loved it because it caused a little bit of chaos. And that was like during, little light drizzles and shit. But then when the track was, quote, completely dried and they were running slicks, it looked like they were still in the wets. They were all over the place. It was like there was an oil spill on the track. And it was like, all right, now this is jeopardizing the quality of sport. Now this is an issue. But yeah, very weird.
It was wild.
Very weird. But overall, great weekend of racing. Oh, by the way, Max won. That's something we have to remember to tell everybody if you don't already know.
In dominating fashion. I think did not make one single mistake through the weekend. So
which is normal.
Which is what we expect. So, hopefully we get some more tire punctures or an engine failure coming up soon, because
it's so sad that we're rooting for somebody's downfall again. But that's where we're at.
Let's keep it interesting. So all right. Well, thanks for everybody for joining along. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any questions you want us to answer, feel free to leave them in the comments. Shoot us a DM, an email, whatever you prefer. We want to hear from you.
There we go. This has been Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast, the post-Chinese Grand Prix edition. We'll see you guys around the bend. Peace.
Peace.